Hello, everybody. Oh, Shmiko, it tells me an error has occurred and to keep waiting. It's something with the LA Tribune, I think. I don't know if I'm recording or
You're
screen.
live. You're live, Rex. You're live.
Okay, everybody, I'm live. I get these weird messages. I have no idea what they are, but welcome to All Things Rex Worldwide. It's another Thursday. We're so glad that you're here. My guest today is an incredible actor, but not only an actor, she's a stand up comic, a radio host, podcast celebrity, and a humanitarian on top of all those things, and an author and a screenwriter. And I could go on and on and on and on. So let me just tell you a little bit about my guest today. It is Lydia Cornell. Now, between 18 and 34 million viewers Tuesday nights on ABC primetime, and with millions more worldwide in syndication, the AFI Best Actress nominee and the People's Choice Award winner Lydia Cornell grew up in America's living rooms, and she's best known for her starring role as Sarah Rush, the daughter of Emmy-winning TV legend Ted Knight, who you remember from the Mary Tyler Moore Show, A Caddyshack, and others. She was on the hit ABC series Too Close for Comfort. She starred in over 250 TV shows and films in 27 countries, including HBO's Curb Your Enthusiasm. She's known for her knife sharp wit in terms of stand up on HBO and improv and in comedy clubs, on social media, and all over the place for the public and on TV. She has interviewed world leaders, Pulitzer Prize winners, White House and presidential candidates for a New Morning Drive AM radio show, and she is the recipient of numerous awards for acting, directing, lifetime achievement, and others, including the first Elizabeth Montgomery Humanitarian Award. She has done so much. She's authored a number of books. Some are being turned into feature films, and she's an advocate for women and children, for teens. She's a mentor, and she works with mothers, and she's also a mother and inspirational public speaker. Her great great grandmother, get this, was Harriet Beecher Stowe. So she's been invited to contribute her writings to the International Museum of Peace, and she is a recovery speaker, turning tragedy into comedy. She's sober from alcohol and drugs for 27 years since 1994, and she speaks to groups of 200 more at hospitals, high schools, colleges, women's centers on overcoming addiction, depression, loss, grief, unemployment, and every imaginable hardship. So, without any further ado, let's welcome Lydia Cornell.
Wow, what
Hello.
a beautiful introduction. You are such a sweetheart, Rex. I'm so honored to be on your show. I love you.
Well, thank you, Lydia. I'm so glad that you're here. You're a person that I love and a person who I believe to be reckoned with. You do so many things. You have so much energy and so many infinite interests.
Thank you, but that was a long intro. I mean, we don't do all those things all at once. But one thing I want to say is pray for Ukraine. I was trying to find the Ukrainian flag right now. We should be wearing it as a pin. But I don't
Absolutely.
have one. Yeah.
I also want to tell the people who are watching this live from the Los Angeles Tribune Facebook page that they can ask questions and leave comments. They can also there's also a chat room here. So if you have questions for Lydia or a comment, feel free to go ahead and we'll do our best to get them answered. There's one from Debbie, says hello Rex and Lydia, so you'll be able to see those as well.
Cool.
So here we are, and I've been trying to get Lydia on the show for a long, long time because you are so busy, um, and you do so many different things. But let's go back. Let's go back because Too Close for Comfort was what an amazing ride. How did you get into all of this? Let's start with the early days of your career and then go from there.
Well, I think children that were abused. I'm kidding. Sometimes we seek the adoration of strangers and we want to come to a bigger playground to get more attention. And I think a lot of actors are not very sane people to begin with, or we're very creative people. And I was always a creative child. I was overly creative. So I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and I was put on theater plays in the backyard in the sandbox. And I had to play the prince, and none of the girls in my neighborhood would be the boy. So I was always the boy. And I lived in a world of make-believe. It was like I wanted to be in an altered state of reality. After my first trip to Disneyland, that's when it really all happened. It was like, oh, wow, you can live in a make-believe world and create this incredible life and pretend. So it's kind of a form of play acting. And showbiz is just, we're all big grown-up kids. We're not grown-up. We're very immature children.
So true. So very true. Or at least I speak for myself.
Yeah. So that dream, I was obsessed with wanting to be an actor ever since high school. And we moved from El Paso to New York, and it was a culture shock. And I didn't know how to speak the language. In New York, you speak, Voidical. Everything's, Loya and water, and El Paso, it was liar and water. And I think it's because the states are closer together in New York. They're more squishy. That is the dumbest stand-up line I've ever done. But I was a very introverted kid, and I just was in all the plays. I played Petra in Enemy of the People at the Scarsdale High School Theater. I was in Playboy of the Western World. I was a torchbearer in Othello. With my best friend was a gay guy named Monroe, whom they later named Monroe Mendelsohn. They named Monroe on our show, Monroe, after my friend in New York. Yeah. But we had big sideburns to cover our acne, and we played torchbearers behind the beautiful Desdemona. And I was just a blossoming nerd. I just wanted to be in theater. And then my parents told me you can never make a living in the arts, so forget it. And I started to get, I didn't want to pursue this as a career. I didn't think it was possible to make a living in showbiz. But we had a devastating tragedy when my father died in Holland. He was on a balloon pump for about a year. Wow. They had moved to Europe. My father was a violinist, and he ended up in the shipping industry. He was born in Russia, raised in Shanghai. And I went to bury him. And while I was in Holland during the time when he was dying, I would watch Dutch TV at night, and with the American TV shows with subtitles. At the end of every show, they would have all the producers' names. So I began handwriting letters to every producer and director and all of its crew. And I wrote about 50 handwritten letters to Hollywood saying, I'm coming back to Hollywood. I'm coming to Hollywood. I would like to get a job somehow. None of those panned out, but I think the intention that I set paid off in the long run in a weird way, because as soon as I got to LA, I was either blessed. My father had died and I felt his spirit around me. I don't know if that sounds weird, but I had a series of incredible coincidences that led to my first audition. Wow. But I had to go through quite a detour on the way. I worked for Jack Webb at Mark 7 Productions and started writing a book on Stalin and Trotsky. And then CAA took the book and they were interested in it. And that a month later, I got the series. And that was a wild audition.
Wow, I want to ask you about that in just a moment. But one of my favorite memories of Jack Webb was at a stoplight at Doheny and Sunset, out where the Nick's Fish Market used to be in the Hamburger Hamlet.
Oh, yeah.
And he stopped everybody. Somebody started to cross the road and he became Jack Webb, Joe Friday. And he was like, everybody stop. And he stopped this traffic. And we were parked at the light and watching him. And went, he's just like Joe Friday. Was he?
Oh, how funny. Oh my God, that reminded me. Okay, so I broke into the lot at Samuel Goldwyn Studios, which later became where I did Love Boats later on. I did 6 Love Boats later on, but I broke onto the lot. I got in, the guard let me in, and I walked down the hall with my resume. And there's Jack Webb with Paul Donnelly, the head of production at Universal. And they go, can we help you? And I said, I'm looking for a job. And they go, well, we have a director upstairs, Georgie Sherman, who's looking for an assistant. So I went upstairs, met Georgie, who is a 4'11" director of John Wayne movies. And I think he did Red River, or he did lots of movies. And I started working for him. And here's what happened. We were producing a movie called Little Mo, starring Mark Harmon, Lana Turner, and Leslie Nielsen. And I got to meet these stars who came in the office in 1979. And we dyed Lana Turner's hair dark, and she ended up not getting the role. She ended up dropping out of the film, and Anne Bancroft came in. So I got to meet Mark Harmon. Leslie Nielsen had his whoopee cushion, and he was using it in the elevator, on people, on Lana Turner and everyone. And then there was a Xerox copy boy named Linwood Boomer, And we would sit and talk about our dreams to become actors. And he'd go, yeah, I want to be an actor. And I said, I do too. How do we break out of the office and do this? And later, a year later, Linwood got a part on Little House on the Prairie as the blind preacher. I got a part on Too Close for Comfort as Sarah Rush. And then 2 years after that, we ended up being lovers in a Love Boat episode. And then he went on to create Malcolm in the Middle.
Wow.
Isn't
What
that
an
cool?
impressive. That's what's so cool about Hollywood and the path, whether a person is successful or not successful, it's the amount of amazing people and talent that you intersect with.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's like
It's
breadcrumbs on the path. And you really can't make a wrong move as long as you keep steadily focused on
truly.
your goal, you know? But then the coolest thing that ever happened was I was invited on a dinner date one night. After my dad died, I was back in LA. And I rented an apartment while I was working for Jack Webb. I rented an apartment by Florence Henderson's sister. She was the landlady. And she had a huge waiting list. And for some reason, she liked me and I got the apartment. It was a single apartment with a Murphy bed in Beverly Hills on Almont Drive for $200 a month. And I went to dinner one night with an agent. And we walk into La Scala, famous restaurant in Beverly Hills. And at the front booth, I was shaking with nervousness because there was Natalie Wood, Aaron Spelling, Robert Wagner, and Fred Astaire sitting together at the front booth. And I'm like starstruck. I'm so starstruck, by the way. And my agent date said, oh, I want to introduce you to, he came over and he stood there and I'm shaking behind him and I couldn't even speak because I was so, I had heard about Aaron Spelling for years, but Natalie Wood. And then we sat across from them. And during dinner at one point, Natalie Wood went like this to me. And I went, me? And I kind of walked over to the table like a zombie. And she said, Mr. Spelling would like to meet you. And he said, are you an actress? And I said, yes. And he said, how about coming in tomorrow and reading for a new series called Bad Cats, which ended up being a beach detectives, a bikini beach detectives. Apparently Michelle Pfeiffer got the part. But I got to meet Kathy Henderson, who then gave me a part in Love Boat a week later.
Wow. Again, these the intersecting moving parts that but what I loved about that is that you said I'm starstruck. It is so amazing. The people who I really resonate with, my friends, are the ones who go, oh my gosh, I got to meet so and so, because we look at the body of work that they've done and they've inspired us, or they've scared us, or they've made us laugh or made us cry, and we're huge fans of these people. And then when you get, sometimes it's great when you get to meet them, sometimes it's not so great, but where else can you do that? It's just truly an amazing world,
isn't it? And then I thought the other day about, before I even got the series at all, I was in Mr. Chow one night, the Rangoon Racket Club in Beverly Hills. And when you're a young girl in town, yes, there's a lot of doors do open for you, especially if you're 5'4" and you're this skinny,
I should have been a young girl in Hollywood. That's what was wrong. That's what's wrong.
Okay. In those days, it was a little bit more of the Me Too. I mean, I look back and I go, Me Too movement. That was the way people, that was Hollywood. It was run on sex appeal. It was run on, and believe me, I was extremely goody-goody and extremely nerdy. And a married man asked me out and I didn't. He was a huge, famous agent. And to this day, I can't say his name because I don't want to bust him. But he took me to dinner and he takes me way far out of the way past all the fancy restaurants. And I went, you're not married, are you? And he went, why, would that bother you? And I turned, he must have seen that I was a virgin to Hollywood. And I was so mortified that a married man would take me out that he dropped me off at home, took me home. From that day on, I had leverage I never knew I had for years, but I never used it. But I was a very innocent kid in Hollywood, and I was so starstruck. And at the Rangoon Racket Club, I met Albert Finney and Michael Caine, and the British, Richard Johnson. And he asked me out, and we started dating. And he'd been married to Kim Novak. And I did travel with him he did a zombie movie in Rome with Tisa Farrow, Lucio Fulci, the famous Italian director who worked at Cinecittà Studios in Rome. So he took me on a trip to Rome, and it was my first big overseas trip after my dad died in Holland. We went to Pompeii and we stayed in Amalfi, and it was a really glamorous time.
God, it's so cool.
I know. I got to meet. It was a fun time in those days. We didn't have cell phones, and I look at my son today, who's 27 years old, and I think I worry every day about him. And I'm thinking, did my parents even know where I was? Did I ever call them? Yeah, but I had pretty strict parents.
I tell people that, hey, I've been stuck on the, the 101 and rush hour traffic and having to get off, and find a phone booth, which, I mean, they were everywhere at the time, but, to call my agent and make a phone call to check my machine.
Yeah, right.
And now everybody's got a cell phone and they're rarely off it. And yet we survived, without a cell phone.
It was like I got riders to college on a bulletin board. I went, can you drive to college with me? I got 4 strangers to split the gas money to go from New York to Colorado Boulder. And they could have been rapists and serial killers, but we were just so trusting.
I mean, I hitchhiked for years in Hollywood. I got beat up. I was at gunpoint. I mean, all sorts of things happened to me, and it didn't stop me from hitchhiking. And if my parents had known, I called them later, that had my parents had a cell phone or been able to track me, it would have been over. They would never have.
Rex, you were held up a gun. I got to hear this story sometime.
Numerous times, but one time, a very quick story. I picked up a couple of guys down around La Brea and Hollywood Boulevard and drove them east to a block past Western. And at the time, on the northwestern corner was a taco stand or a Mexican, stand. And so they said that's where they were going. So I stopped. They go, no, not here, not here. And they said, go to the next corner and turn. There's somebody there. We don't want them to see us. I said, all right. So I get to the next corner and I stop and they go, no, turn. Well, when the minute I made the turn and stopped, I had a loaded 45 at my head.
Oh my God.
And the only thing I remember is going, shit, my mom was right. Don't pick up hitchhikers. I mean, it was like a cathedral in my head.
Oh my God.
And I thought if I can back up into the boulevard and cause an accident, I'll probably get shot in the head. So this Volkswagen was coming up the street. So I quick made a left turn in front of it and waited for what I thought was minutes, and they did nothing. And meanwhile, the guy in the front seat doesn't have the gun. The guy in the back seat has the gun, and he's like going, be cool, we need money. So I turned and I made a turn. I don't remember if it was on Selma or whatever, but I turned the corner, made a right turn, and I slammed on the brakes. And the second I slammed on the brakes, I said, well, go ahead and shoot me. I know what's going to happen. And the guy went back like this, and I grabbed the gun out of his hand.
Oh my God.
And I had this gun in my hand, and both of them are like now going, wait, don't. And I'm like, I trusted you. I picked you up on La Brea, and I drove, and I gave you cigarettes, and we did all this, and this is how you treat me? And they're like, we're sorry, we needed money. And I said, I don't care. I said, I trusted you. And then at the time, I was a very religious, Bible-banging teenager, so I said, I'm going to trust you one more time, but you have to do what I say. And they said, okay. All right. I said, I'm going to give you the gun back, but you're going to go put it in that sewer. I went, okay. I gave them the gun back. We got out of the car. They put it in the sewer. Probably should have had them dismantle it, but I wasn't smart enough to think about that.
God, good for you.
I then gave them Bibles out of my trunk. I said, I'll meet you at that place on Western tomorrow, 3:00. I'll see what I can do. It happened to be a Saturday night, so it was Sunday. I went into the church that we had started in Beverly Hills. We actually started a church.
You're kidding.
And we started it in West Hollywood with, you remember Larry Norman, the gospel singer?
Kind of.
Matt Norman is an actress. But anyway, there's a number of Jesus people at the time in the 70s. Grew from a handful of people to thousands, actually. And we created a theater in Hollywood called the Hollywood Free Theater. We took over a theater and renovated it and made Christian plays and things. Anyway, anyway, the long story short, I went to the church, said, this is what happened last night. The God has saved me. Can we take a donation for these people and help them? They said, no, they're probably con artists. So I said, what? I said, you don't understand. I'm saved. I took this gun away. God has saved me. They go, no, not going to do it.
Oh my God.
2 guys. We went to Ralph's, bought what we could with groceries, went down. They were there. They said, we started reading the Bible. We said, here's some groceries. I had like $6. I go, here's $6. God bless you, and sent them on their way. And that was the last I ever saw of them.
That's amazing.
That was one of many times, but that was
Jeez.
The most profound one.
Oh my God.
I can't believe I just shared that here. I was going to tell you that I lived at Columbia Studios instead, but that's
I'm so happy you shared that. That is really scary, but it's amazing. And I do believe in a higher power, and I do believe that power is love.
Yeah.
the
Well,
love.
let's do this, because I want to touch a little bit on your career, especially what it was like to go from where you were to start of a hit TV show with Ted Knight,
Oh my God.
and then also, you do so much humanitarian work,
Thank you.
and you've gone through your own recovery process, and you help so many people in so many ways that way, that I would really like to be able to venture into that territory as well.
Thank
So
you. I feel that I just wanted to get over the audition for Too Close for Comfort, which was,
sure.
I was so green, naive, that I didn't know to be afraid yet. And I don't even know how. I was the 400th girl they saw, and it was the last day of the audition. And I had these managers, the Laxes, Bernie and Suzanne Lax, who discovered me at a party. And later Joyce Selznick said, no, I found her at a party. And she was the head of ABC casting. And it was one of those serendipitous experiences where I walked into the right room. Someone saw me. They go, she'd be perfect for this role. And next thing I know, I'm auditioning for 3 pilots.
Wow.
I blew, and it was all good luck. Every bad thing that's ever happened to me turned into something good. When I think that way, when I don't worry about it. But that's a process I learned later. But I got this pilot audition for a Larry Gordon pilot called Blue Jeans. I overstudied. I panicked over it. I put on my tightest jeans. I could hardly breathe. And I went and did this tour de force performance, I thought. And I think they hated me. It was like, I didn't get it. And it was good that I didn't get it, because that show never went. If you do get a pilot, you can't sign up to do another pilot. So that pilot didn't happen, and I didn't get it. The second one was called Ladies' Man at CBS. This all happened in the span of a few months after this serendipitous experience, my first Love Boat that I did with Artie Johnson. And here's the serendipity. In that Love Boat I did, when I met Aaron Spelling that night at La Scala, the Love Boat I did was I had to play shuffleboard in a bikini and insult Artie Johnson. And Audrey Meadows was in the background. She was in one of the scenes. So she ended up later playing my grandmother in Too Close for Comfort. But in this Love Boat, I was so nervous. I looked straight in the camera and delivered my line. And the director goes, don't you know, honey, you don't look in the camera. You look off camera. I broke the fourth wall. I was so green and naive. I had to learn everything on the set. And anyway, after that, the Ladies' Man pilot comes up. I didn't get that either. And I was crying and I was so sad. And then they said, here's a third pilot. It's called Keep It in the Family, based on a British show in London. Ted Knight is the star. And you're going to go meet the producers today. So I go into this. I took a bus. I didn't have a car at the time. I think it was actually raining in LA, and I wore I think I was wearing a fall to make my hair longer. I wore a cheerleader sweater, and I walk in the audition, and the secretary goes, you're late. I'm sorry. We're done. You're really late. And the producer, Arnie Sultan, comes out stretching, and he goes, oh, let her read. She looks the part. We have one more girl to read, right? Literally, I was the last girl. And I sit down, and I start to read with the casting people, or with Arnie himself. And there was 2 men in the room and Marcy Carsey. And there's a line that says, Sarah gives Dad a raspberry. So in the line, I'm going, in case you haven't noticed, we're 2 very sophisticated young women. And I pick up an imaginary raspberry and I go, so there. And I thrust it at Arnie Sultan. He goes, what the hell? What is this you're giving me here? What is this? I went, I'm giving you a raspberry. And I think he said, what planet are you from? And I think I said, Texas. And it was like, you don't know what a raspberry is? It's a Bronx cheer. And the whole room burst out into doing, you do one, Rex, do one for me. That's a raspberry. And I was so green and naive. They go, she's perfect. She's either the dumbest person we've ever seen, or she's just, she's exactly what we want in Sarah. They wanted a virginal sex symbol who didn't know anything. And I got to read the next day. I go in to read. They go, you want to be at the network tomorrow, meet the president of ABC, and you're going to read with 5 other girls. You're going to read with Ted Knight. And I went, okay. I go in wearing a virginal white dress with flowers. All the other girls are wearing sexy with their tits hanging out and their crotch showing. And I come in looking like a virgin. And I read with Ted, and they were laughing hysterically. I didn't know enough to be nervous. And here's the God shot, I call it. At the end of it, I read with Deborah too. She was already cast as my sister, Deborah von Valkenburg. And she says to me, that was really fun reading with you. She goes, oh, okay. So the producers then tell me, we never do this, but we're going to tell you right now, you got the part. You're going to be Susan. At the time it was called Susan. And I went, really? I got the part? And then they called my agent right after that. And Deborah says to me, what's your name? How do you pronounce your name? And I said, Lydia Kornilov. It's a strange Russian name. I got to find a shorter name. She goes, Kornilov. I work with a Gregory Kornilov in New York City. All last summer, I was working for him, or 2 years earlier. And he was in Holland in the shipping industry. And I went, that's my dad. Wow. Deborah von Valkenburg, my TV sister, worked for my father out of 9 million people in New York City. So there are no coincidences. I felt like I was in the right place, And now we're still best friends to this day. And I directed her in a movie.
That is so beautiful. You have to come back. We have to do another show where we just talk about strange coincidences like this. It's just so many weird stories that I'm sure we could share. We should find some other people maybe to jump in, because it's just, I am always, whether it's New York or LA, I'm always like, in a city of daytime population, like 14 million people, if two people can bump into each other, it's like the most amazing thing. It's just,
isn't that weird?
And then if there's some connection like what you just had, it's just so wonderful.
I've had so many of those. I call them God shots. I trademarked the term, and now I have a show called God Shots about uncanny coincidence and synchronicity. That I want you to come on my show, so we can do that.
Absolutely. Hey, let's do this. We about 4 minutes. We would take a commercial break, but let's do the commercial now, and then it'll give us a little extra time on the other side.
Okay.
So hang tight for just a second. Your mic, everything will be muted. There'll be 30 seconds worth of commercial, and we'll be right back. All right.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
And I just want to give a shout out to Mo Rock, the CEO, owner of the Los Angeles Tribune, because it is truly his vision to be an inspiration and a platform for people to inspire to be better, to motivate people to be better, and to actually assist them in making that happen. So this show is part of that. I'm so glad to have it. And my guest today is Lydia Cornell. You're watching live from the Facebook page of the LA Tribune. You can ask questions, leave comments. So many people have, and thank you very much. Also, hit the like buttons. But more than that, share the show. If you're having fun, you're enjoying Lydia, be sure to push it out. Let other people see, what we're doing. And we'll all be glad that you did. So thank you very much for being here. And Lydia, we're back.
Thank you. What a cool network. Los Angeles Tribune. It's one of the iconic names that I've always known.
Yeah. And it's always taken it over. Its trajectory is in a completely different direction. Instead of reporting bad news, it's what's good that's going on in the world.
Oh, I love that. That's what we need. I really believe that. If we just focus on the good is all we'll see in our viewfinder.
Absolutely. And that's kind of, you shared a little bit about that, about either being, too, what, for lack of a better term, naive to be nervous kind of thing. But it's true when you're not self-concerned, and when you're not sitting there going, I hope I get the job, I hope I get the job, I hope I get the job. It's like these things start happening quite magically.
Exactly. But when I do worry, I shut off, they say in the recovery, shut off the sunlight of the spirit. I'm so worried that I'm not here now. I'm one moment in the future to worry. I'm one moment in the past, regret, in a state of panic. And you're not, it's hard to access that sometimes, to get there, to get to the peaceful moment, the peaceful present moment. But when you can relax, and you have to train your mind to do it and practice, or just be delighted with life. And like you say, gratitude is the activator. Gratitude is the quickest way and the most sincere way of praying that I've found. It's just to be thankful. Whenever I'm feeling like I'm angry at somebody, and I go, wait, look around. You have so much to be grateful for. Other people are in the war zone right now, suffering, losing everything. And here I'm worrying about some petty, high-class problem. I have nothing to be. I have a good friend who went blind at the age of 53. And I look at her every day and I go, how does she do it? I mean, she's blind. And she was too embarrassed to use a cane or have a dog. And she almost got hit by a car as she was crossing a driveway on the sidewalk. And she began she started a show called Second Vision. Once you lose your first vision, what's your second vision? What's the thing in life that you're called to do?
Wow.
To make, lemonade out of lemons.
Wow. Well, that's absolutely beautiful. And what a wonderful description. I've always said, if you've got a pebble in your shoe, all of your attention goes to that pebble.
Yeah.
And yet everything else is fine.
Isn't that weird?
And the pebble could be anything. I mean, it can be something quite big and quite profound. But the point is that it takes our energy. And what I love what you said about true prayer, if you go through scripture, and I know a little bit about scripture, especially having been that teenager, but the most of everything you find about prayer is praise, give thanksgiving, sing, this is the day the Lord has made, rejoice and be glad in it. It doesn't say rejoice in some of it. It doesn't say be pissed off at this stuff, but be glad about that stuff. It just says rejoice in it, and be glad and give thanksgiving. So, you're right on target right there with, the quickest way to change you and the world around you is through, I believe, gratefulness and gratitude.
Yeah. And to me, prayer is the invisible transfer of love to another or to the situation or to ourselves. It's like, it's not a religious thing. It's what we're born to do. It's being loving and being less selfish. And when I'm less self-serving and less worried about my own problems, the world opens up. It really does. Magical things start to happen. And I get out of my own way. What was it? I heard about, you've heard this before. It's Lawrence Scovel Shin.
Yeah.
The Game of Life and How to Play It, I think.
Yes.
She says, get off the guard. Stop standing on the garden hose. We're stopping all the progress in our own life by thwarting it with worry and fear and kvetching and moaning and grumbling about things we have to do. I do it every day and I forget. Oh, be of love and service. That's the quickest way out of my anger. Be of love and service. Like, I didn't want to do this show today because I thought I was busy with something else. And I go, wait a minute, be of love and service. Maybe I could help somebody. And the minute I think that, I feel relaxed. It's really interesting.
That's beautiful. I mean, it really is beautiful because for all of us to be able to, we talk about a higher power, but then there's also higher purpose. And sometimes, we get caught up in our own purpose of making this or that happen. And when you go, how do I add value? How do I give service? How do I, assist another person? I think it just opens everything up. Mother Teresa, I mean, there's all these examples of people who helped others when in fact, they may have been suffering.
Right.
And yet, when people don't realize that Mother Teresa could walk into any office anywhere in the world, the kind of power she wielded as a giver, not as a taker, not as a warlord, not as anything, but as a giver, she could walk into any office in the world and she was met with respect. And it's like, what can we do for you?
And she took a vow of poverty, and yet she was the richest woman in the world, really. You're right. Everybody looked at her and like, it's because she gave it all away. And I love that. And it's hard to remember in our society, our materialistic society, but I think our materialism has got us to this point of not really putting our values, not coming from a moral center, when we're helping other people.
No, I think you're so right on with it. Can you talk a little bit about how you come up with God shots, the idea, because I love that. That's so cool. When my daughter who moved to California, one day we were in a bookstore and she said, God shots. And I was like, oh, I hadn't heard it. Then knowing you're like, oh, I've traded, so this is so cool because she fell in love with the term.
Well, I, in 1994, September 11th, 1994, after a very scary I was a radioactive drunk, a periodic drinker, but when I would drink, I had an allergy to it. So if I had one drink, I had to have another. And that's why they say, don't take the first drink because that drink takes the second drink for you. That's the poison that poisons your mind. and makes you incapacitated to make a decision that's conscious. So that's why in recovery, it's so easy not to take that first drink. It really is. I had a catastrophic spiritual awakening in my first meeting I went to, recovery meeting. But to this day, I don't know how I got there. I can't remember if I floated, walked, or took a cab because I didn't have a car at the time. The car was in the shop, but I had a really scary moment. I had this beautiful baby. I didn't drink during the pregnancy, but as soon as he was born, I kept guzzling. And this is a really raw recovery story. And I don't know if I want to tell the whole thing here, but at one point I was, it was a scary moment with the child at one point, and they did an intervention. And I remember pointing at my baby brother in the room, and there was a doctor from Brotman Hospital. And I said, he's the one with the problem. He's a pot smoker. He smokes pot every day. And they go, but you're the one with the baby. So if you don't get sober, we're taking that baby away from you. And the next day I went to Brotman Hospital to meet with the counselor, and I wore a dark short wig and red lipstick. And I went, I'm too famous to get sober. And then meanwhile, for years I'd been sitting, I hadn't been working because my drinking got in the way. It was a fear-based thing. Alcoholism is where you hide away from the world and you kvetch and you have resentments and you build up all these stories. And I had a resentment against my mother. Wait, by the way, this counselor said to me, everyone in this town is sober. Every creative person in LA who's doing anything good in the world is in this program, is getting sober. The ones that are actually functioning. So I found out later, many artists are sober right now, but it's hard for me to tell this right now because I'm not doing it at a meeting and I don't want to reveal too much.
No, don't reveal any more than you feel comfortable with, but
the God shot part is cool.
Yeah.
So
and just let's say to the audience that the reason why it's called Alcoholics Anonymous is there's an anonymous component to it, and so to not keep that sacrosanct would you got to go with how you're feeling. So
yeah, you can't tell on other people, but there are times I had the debate with someone the other day thinking, if someone hadn't revealed that they were in the program to me, I would never have known. So in a way, you want to help people find this amazing program, but it's basically you have to surrender. So what happened was I had this lifelong resentment against my mother for many things, and God bless her, she died 1 year ago. She died April 2021, and we had an amazing forgiveness a year before she died. But she was a very difficult parent, and I went through a lot of abuse, and she was borderline. And we thought it was bipolar, but borderline is something different. As the firstborn daughter, the pressure was on me to be perfect at all times, to never speak unless I'm spoken to be with every hair in place. And I was like a doll. I couldn't speak my mind. And I was very scared of her because it could turn on a dime. And there was a really horrible time in high school where it was a scary, abusive situation. So I resented her also for giving away everything I ever owned that I loved. And then I went away to college and I had these Barbies, Barbie, Ken, Midge, and the dream house. And I put it in the attic. And I said, Mom, whatever you do, never give away these dolls. They're going to be worth a fortune someday. And I want to give them to my kids. And the minute I come home from my first semester break, they're gone. She gave them away. So I carried and harbored this resentment for 20 years. Through everything that had happened in my life, I could always drive that screw into her and say, I can't forgive her for this. This is so weird. My first meeting I ever went to, recovery meeting, I was at my wit's end. I'd hit my bottom, and the dog's barking. And I remember going to the meeting, and they said, are there any alcoholics present? And my hand shot up without my permission, and that was my first surrender. And I'd never felt like I could admit that out loud. And I cried a river of tears. It was like the waving a white flag. And at that moment, all these women came running over to me at the end of the meeting and hugged me. And one said, let's go home and talk. Let's get some coffee. And I just had a fight with my mother over the Barbies the day before, a really bad one. This sounds really petty to talk about Barbies, but when your mom takes the one thing you love, and I kept rubbing it in. There was a Barbie musical. All these things were happening. This woman takes me home, and she's a famous actor's wife, and she said, Lydia, you're going to overcome every resentment you ever had in this program. For example, I overcame a lifelong resentment against my mother for giving away my Barbies. She said this to me, not knowing my story at all. And I went, the hair on my neck stood up, and I said, am I on candid camera, or is there a hidden camera here?
Wow.
How could you say this to me? What? And it was such a broad, huge neon sign coincidence that I went, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. It was like Twilight Zone. And I swear, from that day on, I've never had a craving to drink again. And that was my God shot, I call it. Uncanny coincidence. Like Einstein said, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous.
It's beautiful.
And then I had hundreds of those that first year. For 5 years, I stayed in a pink cloud of just joy. Everything was flowing. I've never been happier. And then I hit Earth and I met a normie husband, but I still stayed sober. And some of the craziest things happened after sobriety, but they became funny. Like I turned them into comedy. So life is just an amazing journey of being in the moment. Life is in process. If you can keep your wits about you and don't pick up that, to me, fame is a drug, the fame drug, the hollowness of wanting more, wanting anything to numb you or be in an altered state. I mean, we have our ways. We have TV, we have internet. I have addiction to Twitter at times, but I wouldn't trade that spiritual awakening, that crash and burn, for anything.
You know, that is really, really beautiful. I've never been part of an AA program or rehab or any of that. I have attended meetings, however, but you know, when I was younger, I did drugs, mostly recreational drugs, you know, illegal drugs. And there came a time when I started my own awakening process, and I started doing, you know, lots of hallucinogenics and mushrooms and things like that to awaken.
Yeah.
Did thousands and thousands of hours of isolation tank work and all this kind of stuff. And what I discovered was that nothing that a drug of any kind I'd ever had could do anything better than what I could do when I just let go and meditated.
Exactly.
The inner states of my own being were far greater than anything I could ingest or hope for. And I've tried to tell people that, you know, for 40 years or so, and many don't believe me, but it's true. You know, what I can do meditating is, and it's not about doing anything while you're meditating, but the point being is, you
clearing the mind.
Yeah, when you're in the present moment, it's the most incredible. I mean, words can't describe it. So
well, it's weird. I used to have one time I had an external, something so beautiful appeared in my viewfinder in nature, a butterfly. It's going to sound really corny, but I had to be shocked out of my depression one day. And I'll tell you that story if we have time later or another show. But, you know, like you, a lot of us came to these things through a tangible, visceral experience. We experienced our own incredible downfall, and we barely made it out alive. I was in a suicidal depression before I had the surrender, which opened my mind to the power of joy and gratitude, like you said. But I had to go all the way down to my lowest bottom. And sometimes people don't make it out alive from there, you know. I'm really grateful. I mean, every day I pinch myself going, how did I have this miracle happen, you know? And I don't think miracles are unusual things. I think they're actually natural law, but we just don't see it the right way. That life is supposed to be happy, joyous, and free. We're supposed to be going with the flow, and yet we resist, you know? We fight our enemies. Don't see an enemy. It's hard to say about Putin, but...
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, you talked about not stepping in the hose of Florence Shovel, you know, and the, I think, you know, that people talk about, you know, the law of attraction's not working, or God's not helping, or the universe is against me, or this, that, and the other thing. And I argue all the time that all of the good is right here, right now, present. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. You know, God, if God is omniscient, whatever your version of God is, and omnipresent and omnipotent, you know, all powerful, all knowing, and everywhere at once, there's no place that isn't God. You know, right. You and I, which right now is many, many miles, is God. You know, right. the computer is God, the clothes you wear is God. There's no difference, right? That why we can't see it, and why we don't experience the good, why we don't live our destiny, is because we're too distracted with the circumstances, the events, and the people in our life. We're paying attention to the news and the things and the disruption,
Exactly.
the pebble in the shoe, and all is right there.
Well, first of all, I think we have to do. You and I have a definition of God that may be different. I'm not a fundamentalist. I wasn't raised in a
and I'm not
religion.
any longer.
God is love. Period. God is infinite love. That's all I see. And many people have a very dark view of God being a fear and punishing God from these archaic religions, and I don't put them down. There's a lot of beauty in the old churches and the Gothic ways, but I don't believe in a God of hell and damnation. I believe there is no such, that fear is false evidence appearing real, and that we have an abundant universe. And the minute, like you said, we key into the higher thought, the highest thought I could be having at any moment is never one of regret or fear or shame. It's always one of love, abundance, prosperity, joy, harmony. If you key into that higher viewpoint, you can see the whole world. They call it chaos theory. It can look chaotic from that point of view, but it's a beautiful pattern is forming. We have to see it differently, and that's how to pray for others, is to see the good going on despite what our material lens shows us. That there's an invisible harmony going on at all times. That's quantum physics. Your viewpoint can alter the reality. I used to say, and I made this up somehow, a particle, a wave, everything's infinite waves of possibility, but we lock it in with our particular point of view, locking it into a particle by our judgment, hatred, fear. Trayvon Martin, the way George Zimmerman saw him as a bad kid, this black kid walking around. He just had Skittles. He was on his way to his grandma's house. He thought of him as a bad kid. And that hate crime happened because of his particular point of view. He made a wave into a particle. I know it sounds crazy, but we have to really be careful how we think and take the hate out of there.
Agreed. Totally agreed. That was a very wonderful description. Before we go any further, I've been remiss. Is there any way that people can either get in touch with you or read your books or go to a website? Or
yes.
Let's get that up. We should, if they can, they'll put a banner up for you, because I didn't do that in advance.
I should put the banner. LydiaCornell.com. LYD. You can see how I spell it. LydiaCornell.com, and I should update the website. I also have a website called godshots.org. Godshots.org. And then I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and Instagram. I don't want to do TikTok yet. I don't have enough bandwidth. But
let's talk about Godshots. So how do you spell Godshots?
small g. Now, GODSHOTS.org. Godshot. A Godshot is at first I came up with this. It wasn't just something I invented, by the way. I heard it in meetings. I had a Godshot. That was a Godshot. An uncanny coincidence. It's so bizarre. And there is no random coincidence, by the way. That Barbie doll coincidence. The next day I had another one of those. I had so many. And when you're in the flow, you start to see them more and more. I don't know if we have time for the butterfly one, but
yeah, we're all good.
It sounds really dorky, but in sobriety, after I'd already had my spiritual awakening. Now, there's a great book that Courtney Thorne-Smith gave me, an old friend of mine. It's called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. And it's written by a Buddhist, and I think he's a famous Buddhist. I have to look up the author. After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. She goes, after you've had your spiritual awakening and you think, wow, the world is magic. Invisible, if we could see behind that veil that we have to peel back of all this war and suffering and hatred and bickering, there's this beauty going on. But once you have that amazing experience like I had a catastrophic spiritual awakening. You still have to live in the real world, and you have to apply it every day. And you can't let up on going back into miserly behavior, selfishness, grumbling, and worry. And we do. But it's hard to live in the real world and still do the laundry when you think you've been up there, feeling so good about everything. But that's the challenge. And to me, the best thing I've ever done is not have another drink or a cigarette. I gave that up too through prayer, through a surrender. And when by the way, my little baby brother, the first year I got sober, the little baby brother, he was 38 at the time. No, he was 34. He passed away a year later. I found his body. He was a concert pianist. He was not constitutionally capable of being totally honest with himself. He couldn't get sober. He tried heroin 3 times. The third time, it killed him. They laced it with fentanyl or something. I didn't think I could ever get through that sober and also help my family through that. And I shared about him at a meeting, and all these kids came and they walked. One boy walked all the way from Hollywood to Franklin Canyon to come to the memorial service. And he said, I'll never do drugs again because of what what happened to your brother. And that same month that my brother had died, his girlfriend he'd had for 10 years, she couldn't get over the death. She was a vice president at Neiman Marcus in Dallas. She drank a bottle of booze while she was driving on her way in December through a snowstorm, hit a head-on collision and killed an entire family and herself on her way to his funeral.
Wow.
So I'm telling you, this disease spares no one. And Vicky and Paul, we lost both of them, and I stayed sober through that, and many other people did too, because I kept sharing about it and helping others. And I really don't believe in death. I know that sounds a little weird, but we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and that's another whole subject. But there is no death.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I mean, if energy can't be created or destroyed, and only transformed, then we just transform. And I don't disagree at all. Wow. I mean, beautiful. We have so much to talk about in future shows.
Yeah. The butterfly, we'll save that for another show.
Well, we've got about 6 minutes on the outside here. So, but you do a lot of humanitarian work, and you've been acknowledged for doing humanitarian work, and you work with abused women, and I mean, so many different groups. What?
That was sweet.
Pardon me?
That was sweet of the honors that I got for that. That was really sweet.
Yeah, beautiful. But let's talk, because you do so much different kind of helping work.
Well, I this past year of the pandemic, I've been working individually with certain people that are suicidal, and we try to help each other. And also in the program, you do that every day. But for many years, I did a lot of work with Foothill AIDS Foundation, with cerebral palsy, with women and children, mainly women, young women. And because I went through so much as an actor, they had exploited me in cheesecake bikini photos and having to be thin and perfect. And I don't like what's going on Instagram with young women, where they're so body conscious, and young girls are looking at other women thinking, I have to look that beautiful to get ahead in life. So I do a lot of speaking on, I wrote a movie called Venus Conspiracy. It's a comedy about loving yourself, loving your body, but it's about a plot to keep us thin and insecure. So, and my book that's going to come out soon, I hope, is called Hiding My Brain in My Bra. And it's about crazy experiences in spiritual growth. It's all funny. For some reason, everything that ever happened to me when I had my awakening was that it turned funny. Like, in the moment you're going through it, it's not funny. But later, I can laugh at it. And maybe that's just a coping mechanism. But I've been doing a lot of public speaking for young women, and I work with David Mirisch on several big charitable causes. We worked with Miss Wheelchair USA, Cynthia DeJesus. She's a lot of disabled people. I'm doing a workshop for 60 disabled actors coming up for David Zimmerman, Performing Arts Theater West. You should actually talk to them too, because you're an actor. They would love to hear your story.
Absolutely. Thank you.
But all this charity work, it's never enough. Right now I would love to be, I actually feel that prayer and meditation, they say Buddhist monks, when they pray, their brainwaves change. Mm-hmm. And healing can happen. And my partner on God Shots is a nurse, and the dean of a university in Virginia. And she and I both had a God shot the way we met, so we decided to join forces on God shots. She did actual scientific experiments with meditation and prayer, and it lowered cholesterol levels in all the people that were being prayed for. So I think we can do a lot with our own thoughts, keeping our thoughts on love and seeing people thriving. It's a different way to pray. It's not like begging an anthropomorphic being in the sky. There's no bearded man in the sky. It's replacing a thought of terror and horror and fear with love. I mean, there's a lot of power in that.
Well, I think, the notion John Lennon said, give peace a chance. We've never done it. We've never really given peace a chance. But give peace a chance, give love a chance. Gandhi was able to bring the entire British Empire to their knees, essentially, without ever being violent or having that, but by creating and inspiring. Exactly. It can be done.
Exactly. And I didn't want to go on too long, but I don't know, we can go over a little bit.
Sure.
Okay. David Mirisch invited me to do an event for autistic children. And I used to do a lot of this stuff all the time. I would go down and speak to kids about autism, try to connect with them. And I went down and did a fundraiser for autistic kids in Del Mar. And they give you a free gift for staying overnight at a hotel. And the gift they gave me was a trip to the San Diego Zoo the next day. It was during my divorce. I was going through a devastating divorce. It was probably in 2012. Yeah. And I had been grieving the end of my marriage. And I had a stepson I had raised from the age of 4. He had brittle bone disease, osteogenesis imperfecta. And I raised him to not worry, because every time he fell, his bones would break, his rib cage would break, his collarbone would break. His little elbows he couldn't touch his chin. So I tried to teach him throughout his whole childhood, how to not be afraid. And my son, my biological son, was 16 at the time, and Kevin was 14, and my marriage was ending. And my husband was taking my stepson away to go to another high school. And I was never going to see him again, really. He wasn't going to live with me anymore. And I was so depressed one day, and this is in sobriety. The heartache was it felt, real. It felt like tangible heartache, like a knife in my heart. And I remember going outside and sitting on the front lawn and looking up, and I saw fig leaves. I was sitting under a fig tree. I never noticed we had a fig tree in our yard. That's how unconscious I was in the marriage. I was always putting on Pokemon parties and Yu-Gi-Oh parties and little boy things and running around making everyone happy. And I hadn't looked up very much, I was trying to be the perfect wife and the mother and stepmother. And I couldn't even go back in the house because the little boys, we dipped their handprints in paint and put them on the walls in each bedroom. And I couldn't see that, knowing that I was not going to see my little stepson again for many years, because they went to Europe for a while. So I'm sitting under the fig tree, and I realized that tree has never bloomed. There's never been figs on it. And by the end of that year, by the way, of this spiritual raising of consciousness, the tree was full of figs. My life had come to fruition, fruit. So, but I had to take another journey, a deeper journey into my psyche and myself, and self-will run riot. And as I was sitting there depressed, I started thinking about Wayne Dyer, whom I used to love reading. Wayne Dyer, he had an experience with some butterflies, and I saw a butterfly come over to me. This is going to sound so nerdy and hokey, but this giant tiger swallowtail butterfly came over, kind of shocked me out of my depression for a moment, like an external plastic surgery pill. The butterfly goes through such an ugly birth process and it becomes this radiant creature. And then another one, and they were circling my head, and I became delighted with them. It was like I was shocked out of my depression, and I began chasing butterflies. And the next day I had to go to Del Mar to do the autism event, and they gave me the ticket to the zoo. And I kept thinking, I'm going to just love this whole day. I'm going to stay present in this day and really not worry about the divorce and all the money being lost and all the scary things going on. I'm going to be present all day long. And I went to the orangutans, and one orangutan stuck her tongue out at me, and I was giggling. And I went and saw a peacock opened its entire plumage to me. And this baby and I were playing with the peacock and laughing and giggling. And all the parents were milling around jaded and looking at their phones and watches. But I was childlike all day long. I played. I was so in love with this zoo day. And I kept thinking, all I want to see is a monarch butterfly. I've never really seen one in person, up close. And I drive home from Del Mar, all the way home, come up to my front steps, and there's a monarch butterfly waiting for me on a white rose.
Wow.
And it was like, it was all I wanted that day, just that little gift, and it was there. And I was so happy, and this thought came to me. The universe is interactive. It wants playmates. It wants to play with us. It wants to show off for us. It wants to give us everything, something even as, anything we want. And all I wanted was a butterfly that day. And yet we're never present enough. We're never appreciative enough. We're never in the moment enough to see its gifts. So we miss it. And that whole day I was so present. That was my gift, my reward at the end of the day. And that came to me, God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, is here. It's an abundant universe. And yet we're thumbing our nose. We're worrying. We're looking at the news. We're like kvetching over where's mine,
That's
so that was my revelation that day.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And it's so beautiful. I want to share a story, but I don't want to do the compete with a story kind of thing.
No.
I want to give a story that backs up what you shared so beautifully, because it's setting that intention and it's having that and then having that experience, there in front of you. I every now and then will do a 2 or 3 or 4 day or 1 day manifestation challenge where I would give myself something that I hoped I would not discover anyway. I would try and pick something like, what would I not ever see or do or have, and try and work to manifest that. Go, I want to manifest this, and I write about it in my blog and different things. So I was part of a film festival, and I had to be at this film festival for 4 or 5 days. Mm-hmm. And I think I started the challenge it was 24 or 48 hours. I don't really remember what it was, but so let's say it was a Wednesday that I started the challenge, was the day that the festival started, and it's now Friday, and it's closing in at 5:00 p.m., which is the 48 hours. And I had said goldfish, and I stayed out of stores. I didn't do anything. I didn't want to have anything to do with goldfish. I was in this festival the entire time, nothing. And I'm on the computer in the back because I was helping promote the film fest. And I'm watching a short, and I'm aware that there's like 10 minutes left that I've not seen any goldfish anywhere. So I get on and I look up the actress and look at her credits on IMDb, and I'm like, okay, all right. And I go to the lead actor and I look at him, and third credit down is a movie called Goldfish. And I was like, whoa, yeah, I made it, right?
I love it. Oh my
God. The festival ends on Saturday. I'm shooting a short film. I have to drive. I invite a friend of mine, to join me. She meets me on the set, and I walk in and they said, "Hi, how you doing? Here, would you like some goldfish?" And for days they were like treats of goldfish.
I love it.
It was wonderful. It was amazing. I only say because if you put it out there and you let it go, anything is possible. It's that God shot that you described. So
I love that. Oh my God, I love that. I've got to tap into your mind, Rex, because what you just said about manifestation, I used to manifest all the time. And then I stopped myself with that worry and stuff. And I became too reality based. The reality, you can choose any reality you want. Why are we choosing this ugly reality when there's this beautiful one we could pick? My reality, I choose harmony, peace, and love. And you don't even have to see an enemy anywhere if you do that, except for Putin. We have to figure out how to pray for Putin to change his mind or stop him.
Well, I do think sending positive energy doesn't mean you accept what the person is doing, but you send positive energy with the idea that may help alleviate some of what's going on. I want to say, because we are going to close out the show, that you have been just an absolute delight and a wonderful guest. And I love you, and I'm so happy that you're here. But not only that, you've put more than a face to fame, and because you've worked since a young time as an ingenue girl in TV hit series and things like that. But people don't get fame, and they think celebrities and it all must be perfect and it all must be easy. I think you need a book called Fame, Then Laundry.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, there were some survival years that were so hard, some hardship years. some lost years, unemployment years, but even those are gifts in a weird way. And by the way, I just want to say, I want to give a shout out to Donnie Most from Happy Days, who directed me in a movie with Linda Pearl called Care Package. It's hilarious. It's a 10-minute short, a mystery, and they screened it at the Golden Gate Film Festival last night, and it'll be at lots of festivals this coming few months.
Make sure that Donnie watches the show. Don watches the show and gets to see you. That's awesome. Well, yeah, fantastic. And please, everyone who's watching, go ahead and share this and push this out there so that other people can benefit from the wisdom and the words and the love and the attitude that Lydia has shared. I'm so pleased that you're here. I get to have to say goodbye. Hang in the green room for a little bit, and I'll be right back. I got to close the show out. But I got it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So we'll say goodbye to you for now, but just temporarily, so I can say goodbye officially in a little bit. Thank you. Thank you. And I got to have you back. Thank you.
Definitely. I'll have you on my show too. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Lydia Cornell. Was this not a wonderful show? It was. And I'm so delighted. She's such a marvelous person, such a gift. And it's been a gift for me to be able to bring you her and her story, her life, her experience. And I'm also blessed that I've been able to do that with a number of people because of the Los Angeles Tribune, to share them. My recent guest was Jim Stovall and Michael Seibel, who Lydia and Michael know each other. Oh my God, I got to bring you back. You got a second to come back?
Oh my God, Michael Seibel.
Michael Seibel was, I guess, last week because he directed The Ultimate Gift, which Jim Stovall wrote.
Oh my God.
So I had them both on the show, and Michael, I said, "Oh, and Lydia Cornell." He's like, "Oh, Lydia and I are friends."
Yeah, we've been friends for many years.
Yeah. Michael and I have been friends for many years too. So it's really beautiful.
What a coincidence.
A God shot.
Total God shot. Cool.
So, all right, I'll let you relax.
You have him for me, okay? I'm going to also connect with him too.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and again, we'll share this. I think I may have shared it to him already before the show, but we'll make sure that we do. And
cool. Great, wonderful,
awesome. So again, Lydia Cornell, please do share the show. If you are watching this, and it's the recording, you're either on the Tribune, Facebook, my profile, LinkedIn, or my profile on LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, Periscope, and wherever else, and Roku TV. Please do share the show, like, and leave comments, both like they have live and also during the recorded show. But please help me share the show and reach other people with my wonderful guests. And again, I'm so blessed to be able to do that. It's my turn to tell you a little bit about my book. I am the author of a book called Life on Your Terms, and there is the book. And if you get the book from Amazon, there's a softback or a hardcover. Go to they'll have to put it up, I think. Go to rexsikes.com /book. And you take your receipt code, you put that in the in a little box there where it says receipt code, and you'll get access to a $497 valued training called the Mastery Loop. It's on mastering your mindset, your emotions, your behaviors to get the kind of results that you want and be able to create the life that you deserve. See, Life on Your Terms is about creating the life that you want. So I'm giving you a bonus online video training to assist you in the process. And it's my gift to you for those of you who've got the book. It's more important than reading the book is to apply what's in the book and to transform your life so that you do live life on your terms. You see, I'm convinced that if you consider everything a blessing, everything's a blessing. If you consider it a problem, it'll be a problem. So the alternative is to consider it a blessing, right? And as Lydia and I have talked about, be thankful, be grateful, and celebrate everything. With that, I'll see you the next time.